In this episode of Special Assignment, as the Constitutional Court prepares to hear a watershed case later this year, we revisit a series of investigations we aired over the past 6 months that highlighted the rise of medical negligence cases in what many believe is a crippling public healthcare system.
Doctors are known to be butcherers. It is known that the certain doctors, you go to theatre and that doctor is the one butchering you. Oh, you better pray so hard because chances are you're not going to come back.
What is the emergency C-section? If then I was kept so long on the bed, not attended, and then to take out the baby, that already there was no heartbeat.
My beautiful daughter was just lying there, beautiful as she was, numb. And this doctor left her bleeding.
Since our broadcasts, scores of viewers reacted with their own horror stories at the hands of healthcare professionals inside our hospitals. Very few cases make it to criminal court. Last year, we told the story of this woman, Bongi, who fought for 12 years to find justice for the death of her daughter inside a private hospital. And in her unprecedented case, for the first time in South Africa's history, a medical doctor was sent to prison for negligence.
If it has to be this one doctor that we need to deal with in order to ensure that South African doctors have a lesson learned because of this case, let it be.
Tonight and in coming weeks, we shed light on some of the thousands of patients who opt for civil lawsuits against our private and public hospitals.
I'm not apologetic. I do want compensation. I do, and everyone within my support group that was wrongly done, and it has been proven that it was negligence, they will be compensated. It might not be today or tomorrow, but they will eventually be compensated because they have been wrong.
Bongi was only 17 when she fell pregnant. She was admitted to Baragwanath Hospital and was told she will deliver her firstborn through a C-section. Her baby was healthy and mother and child were sent home without any complications. Years later, Bongi met a man and they decided to try and have a baby. But when the couple battled to fall pregnant, Bongi turned to a fertility expert for help. This is where she made a startling discovery.
He asked me if I was okay, and I said, yeah, I am okay, I think. And he put a glass of water next to me. And he said to me, I've got terrible news for you. And I thought he was going to say, oh, due to this and that and this and that, you can't conceive again, your infertility, something along those ways, your eggs, your tubes, something like that. I honestly did not suspect that it would be that I don't have a uterus.
Bongi says she immediately called her mother, who was the one who accompanied her to hospital for her daughter's birth years ago.
I told her that I just came back from the doctor, hence you know that I'm trying to conceive. I just came back from a doctor and the doctor told me that I didn't have a uterus. Do you have any idea? Was anything said to you and you forgot to mention it to me? Somehow, and my mom, she said it in Zulu, she said to me, meaning, what are you saying about the uterus? And she said to me, it's not a finger, it's a uterus. There's no way I would have forgotten to tell you. And now she was saying that direct to me, shouting at me that, how can I forget such an event? It's not a finger, it's a uterus. I did not forget. Nothing was said to me. And I asked her, are you sure you did not sign anything? You don't remember anything, any paper being given to you to sign? No, she did not.
Bongi says her life fell apart. She started isolating herself and even broke off her relationship with her fiancé at the time.
It was not important to give him a child. It was important for me to have a child. And at that time, I did not have an understanding that I had other options, such as surrogates. So to me at that time, it was just the end. The dream of being a mother again, it just crushed.
Bongi laid an official complaint with Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, but it took months before Bongi and her mother could meet with hospital management, including with this man, Dr. William Edridge, a senior obstetrician at the hospital.
I went with her to a meeting that I had with Dr. Edridge. At first, Dr. Edridge said to me, he was there when the procedure happened, and he said to me, I was told and I signed. And I said to him, let's not forget that I was a minor, so your consent form is not valid. And right there, he had a second-hand solution. He said to me, okay, now that you don't have a uterus, we can quickly write you a letter to Steve Biko. I can write it right away, right now, and you can go to Steve Biko for a surrogate. And I remember saying to him, Dr. Edridge, I'm not looking for a second-hand solution here. What happened to my uterus?
Dissatisfied with their answers, Bongi approached the then Gauteng Health MEC Gwen Ramokgopa, but she says she was initially met with closed doors. Here, Bongi is seen with a fellow activist who embarked on a sit-in protest at the Provincial Health Department's offices until the matter was heard.
It's day 3 of the sit-in. I am tired, as you can see, but Aluta continue.
Not causing any trouble. We're just sitting here and they are feeling our presence, you know.
What is important is also to look at each case, what happened, because we must get to the bottom of it. I'm very worried that there are no records, because there has to be records.
In this recording of a meeting with the department management, an official admits that Bongi's medical records had been destroyed.
You looked, no records.
So 2005, there was, as far as I know, there was a destruction of the records. So there was this. So
but the destruction of records was those records that are older than. It was not the records of 2005.
No, it wasn't. It was everything before 2005 up to, I don't know what it was up to.
This is a complaint that I wrote to Barbara through the quality department.
To date, Bongi has approached the National Health Ministry, the Office of the Presidency, the Public Protector, the National Health Professions Council of South Africa, the Provincial Health Department and Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. The Department of Health and Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital did not want to comment on the matter while still being mediated.
Dear Mr. President, my name is Bongi Msibi. I'm 30 years old. When I was 17 years old, on the 26th of December 2005, I gave birth to a girl at Baragwanath Hospital. What is most disturbing and traumatizing for me is that the doctor in charge decided to make life alteration decision on my behalf without my mother's consent or mine. I do not think that anyone has the right to make such a decision. I visited the hospital where the incident happened several occasions to try and get answers. I've been there several times and I still walked away empty-handed. It shows that in a perfect country, somebody should have picked this up. The pain drives me so much that I cannot give up and I cannot give in. We have an issue and it needs to be resolved.
An unlikely bond formed between two women who share a common experience of medical malpractice. Bongi met mother-turned-activist Boyi Daweti after going public with her story of illegal sterilization earlier this year. Boyi had made news headlines in June last year following a watershed court judgment when, in the first time in South Africa's history, a medical doctor was sent to prison for medical negligence. In recent years, Special Assignment has been following Boyi's legal battles, for whom it took 12 painstaking years to find justice in Pamela's case.
This daughter was drunk, Adele, and he just took the jacket and threw on the floor. You could see that this is not a normal person. But I did request to these nurses. I said, guys, you saw that this doctor is drunk. I asked her if we can change the doctor. Then she said it was too late because Pam was already far. And if I take her now, it will be a risk. He was calling, was a vacuum extractor, forceps, and the nurses had already set the table nice below Pam. And he manipulated with this vacuum extractor and then put his hand in. The way he put that hand, that arm was inside Pam, and he was like, as if he was twisting a pipe. I don't know what he was twisting there. I don't know the strength I had to be in that room. But when I look at these nurses, I was like, I could see that they were also not approving what he was done.
Boyi's granddaughter Lisa Kanya survived the birth, but Pamela bled to death in Dr. van der Walt's absence while he gave telephonic instructions to nurses from home. This report by obstetrics expert Dr. MJ Titus from the Health Professions Council of South Africa would form a crucial part of the criminal case against Dr. van der Walt more than a decade later. The report notes that Dr. van der Walt failed to examine Pamela Daweti following a traumatic assisted instrumental delivery. Displayed poor judgment in that he first used a vacuum extractor and applied a forceps with disastrous outcome. Used a single-blade forceps to rotate the fetal head, which the report calls a dangerous maneuver. Failed to manage a third-degree perineal tear according to standard accepted guidelines, and that the nurses were left to battle on their own, barely keeping the patient alive, while the doctor, who should have been in charge of the management of the patient, was giving telephonic verbal orders. The report's finding is that the patient's death was as a result of gross negligence on the part of Dr. van der Walt.
The sentence that the court imposed is 5 years imprisonment in terms of Section 2761I of the Criminal Procedure Act.
If it has to be this one doctor that we need to deal with in order to ensure that South African doctors have a lesson learned because of this case, let it be.
In a surprising turn of events, during an interview with the Health Professions Council, Special Assignment learned that despite his jail sentence, Dr. van der Walt had not been stripped from his medical license.
He is still registered as a doctor. And what we found is that we're looking at reviewing our own acts, because our acts confine us to professional conduct inquiry, professional behavior, and findings in our own processes. It is deficient in that it does not speak to criminal convictions of any nature by any of the practitioners on the register. And that matter is being reviewed by the legal division as to whether we could put language to cover instances like that.
That this doesn't happen to anybody else that we know, right? That's what we...
Today, Boyi supports Bongi in her own quest to find justice in her case. The two women have united, and Boyi hopes her advice and support would assist Bongi to find closure much faster than it took her to finalize her own daughter's case.
It is my right to be able to reproduce, and that right was taken away from me. I need to fight for it. And it will end when I feel I'm satisfied. It will not end when they are satisfied. It is my body, my uterus, my war. It will end when I say the war has ended.
Bongi Msibi has started a support group for other victims of medical negligence. She has been flooded with stories of other victims since going public with her own experience at the hands of medical staff at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital.
It has become a norm. You don't want to know the shocking, horrifying stories that I hear from these people from the support group. Oh, it says lachis. You go to theater and you come back alive. You must know that you serve the Most High God, because those doctors there, they play God themselves. They decide what they want to do with people's lives.
Your uterus was removed.
You're not even strong enough.
And then now what I know, okay, uterus.
Puleng says she too had her uterus removed at a public hospital in the Free State without her knowledge or consent.
I discussed everything with my gynae when I was on my first trimester, telling her my history about how it happened, and then I'm the person suffering from BP and all those things. And then I asked her if maybe I could give birth early so that to avoid those complications. And then she told me that no, there's no need for us to go to on a early delivery, because we'll wait until there are complications. It was early in the morning that I have pains, and then they came up with the scan to scan the heartbeat, and then that is where they realized that there was no heartbeat, and then already I was having internal bleeding. So they told me that they were going to take me to theater to perform emergency C-section. But I went to theater at around 3 in the afternoon. So can you imagine the hours that I was still on the bed, not going to theater? And then I was asking myself, what is the emergency C-section? If then I was kept so long on the bed, not attended, and then to take out the baby, that already there was no heartbeat. So no one told me that they were going to take away the uterus. They just took it without my consent, and it's so sad.
Just like Bongi, Sipendile says she also went to Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital when she was only 15 and pregnant. She says she too was told at the last minute that a cesarean will be performed on her. After the birth of her baby boy, she complained to hospital staff about a bad smell coming from her cesarean wound, but they discharged her nonetheless.
As I get home, I explain, my granny, this thing has been coming out. I don't know what's happening. She says, if till tomorrow this thing is still coming out, we will rush you to the hospital. So it's still coming out, and it's smelling very, very bad. I get to the hospital, I see a doctor, I start explaining myself, and then she makes me lie on the bed. She took like something that was like a metal, and in fact it was a metal. She put it under my vagina, and a whole lot of dirt, stinking dirt, was coming out. And then she went to the lab, she came back, and she just told me that your womb is septic.
On her 16th birthday, Sipendile heard the startling news that her uterus had been removed.
My mom was on the other side, so nobody actually explained to her what was happening. So they just gave her the form to sign with no explanation. She thought maybe they were cleaning me up. Maybe there was something that is not okay, but they were cleaning me up. I do the operation, it's still not okay. They leave me open with my organs popping out for more than 8 hours. Family came, they were asking these guys, the doctors, what's happening? Why is she laying on the bed? Her organs are popping out, and you know what's really happening? I said, no, there's an emergency, there's other emergencies that we have to actually worry about right now, but we will attend to her when the time is right. I always blamed my son for everything. So when I always blamed him. I always did. It was really hard for me. I was getting like people who, in the township where I was staying, who would actually judge me and say, she's a scrap. She can't give birth anymore. Nobody's going to take her. I had words like that.
Everyone within my support group that was wrongly done, and it has been proven that it was negligence, they will be compensated. It might not be today or tomorrow, but they will eventually be compensated because they have been wronged.
South Africa's healthcare sector has seen a staggering increase in medical negligence cases over the past decade. According to reports, medical claims against public hospitals have already reached an alarming 80.4 billion rand.
When you're talking of staff shortages, medication shortages, equipment shortfalls, long queues, long working hours, insufficient cover in the private sector, people's choice of practitioner being limited in the private sector, people's forms of treatment being curtailed, all these issues lead to an environment where ethical practice is challenged. What we do in healthcare is not perfect. Outcomes are not guaranteed, but what we expect is professional conduct in accordance with what is expected of the profession, of the colleagues, and of the training and competencies that practitioners have. But even in that scenario, patients can still be harmed.
In recent years, submissions were made before Parliament for law reform around the State Liability Act in an effort to curb astronomical claims against the Health Department. And in coming months, the Constitutional Court could hear a watershed case in medical negligence. The country's highest court must decide how the legal test for causation of harm must be implemented, this following a Supreme Court of Appeal ruling relating to a baby who got brain damaged during birth at an Eastern Cape public hospital. But while the numbers stack up in medical negligence cases, healthcare activists like Bongi insist that medical practitioners must be held liable criminally and financially in cases where they cause harm.
For those that doctors made a call to save their lives, we appreciate that and we are thankful for that. And we are thankful to the doctors that still go an extra mile beyond the clock to save their patients. We appreciate them. May they continue doing the good job. But can we also take out the bad seeds? Because we do have bad seeds and they are known and they are protected by all these fancy institutions. We have HPCSA, we have all these fancy institutions, but who really advocates for patients?
Since our broadcasts of Bongi's story, the Gauteng Health Department has indicated that a settlement is being drafted in her case. But in coming weeks, we highlight the shocking stories of the abuse and neglect of elderly patients in our public hospitals. Since our expose in 2016 on this shocking trend of elderly medical neglect, we also ask, has there been any recourse in these cases?